So if there is a virus or a fungus or a parasite that humans were susceptible to, that caused humans to basically have almost like somewhat of a rabies effect, because that's a thing that already happens where you become rabid. And the term is you're highly aggressive beyond reason, and you've got adrenaline pumping through your body, and that's just a disease.
Possible apocalyptic futures.
So you've got. Do we want to do? I guess I was kind of thinking of
when
apocalypse causes.
Oh.
And then we can run down based on the cause what the future would be like. Because if you have an EMP,
either way,
you have a different cause, or you'd have a different apocalypse.
They're attached things. We'll go after both at the same time.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Interesting note, sort of in connection to this. When we met, it was the bonding moment was Fallout 3, which had come out not too terribly long before. Right?
I don't think it was 3.
Yeah. No, it was 3. It was 3.
Did New Vegas come out between 2 and 3?
No. There's Fallout 1, Fallout 2, which few people have played, and then like a really weird third one that was sort of an unofficial, kind of like New Vegas, like almost like a DLC or something, but it was very much its own game called Tactics, which you controlled members of the Brotherhood of Steel, and it was like a tactical overhead shooter thing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was really.
Was it fun?
It was super fun. It was made in like 1990 something though. I mean, the graphics are not incredibly fantastic in that sense, but it's a great game. And then Fallout 3 was like the big kind of reboot, and that takes place in DC. And I'm pretty sure that's the one you were playing when we were hanging out. When we first met. You were playing Fallout 3.
That came out in 2008, and then New Vegas came out in 2010.
The greatest.
Which I never played.
What?
Never played New Vegas because of my experience with Fallout 3 when I stayed up like a meth addict for like almost 48 hours. I started playing it on a Friday night.
Your family can't take the blow.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Started playing it on a Friday night.
You've never played New Vegas?
Mm-mm.
Someday, we're going to I don't know, have our own Christmas party and just play New Vegas for days. And then burn it and then never do it again.
Yeah, that would be fun. So what happened was I got the game. I bought it used. It was after 2008. It wasn't actually 2008. It was like probably, because I didn't even move to the Valley until 2009. So it was probably 2010 that I picked it up.
Which makes sense.
And it was
right around when it was coming out.
I bought I didn't buy it. Stefan had an Xbox and I bought the game used. And started playing it on Friday after work. It was like a payday Friday.
That's when Stefan couldn't access his Xbox for weeks, or...
Nope. So it's a quick story. Okay. Started playing it on Friday night. The campaign mode on that takes 100 hours typically to beat.
What's the non-campaign mode?
Just side missions.
Okay.
Whatever. So if you only do the main mission, it takes about 100 hours of game.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Hours.
Like if you just follow the story.
So I just followed the story. Started Friday night. Didn't sleep Friday night. Played all day Saturday.
Yep.
Played late into Saturday night. Slept for a couple of hours. Woke up and finished it on Sunday morning. And so my total gameplay time was a little over 24 hours.
Just to power through the campaign
and completed the story. Yeah. And then
if you take your time, you get to 100. Not too shabby.
Yeah, because what you'll do is when you're on regular play mode, you'll go, I'm on my way to this mission. Let me run into this hotel real quick, see what's there. And then you've spent 4 hours in the hotel. Whereas if you're just on game, the main story mode, you're just running from point A to point B, just not getting distracted at all.
Right, that's true.
And then you've got that was the fun rush of it, I think, is because you have to choose how to level up really correctly so that you can actually not have to do any side missions. Because the game will force you to try to level up through doing some side missions so you get experience. So it's this really intense strategy of like, what are the skill sets that are lacking that I need in this game I've never played, in this world I don't know, so that I can make sure that I can either have the computer skills I need or the hacking skills and the armor skills and all that stuff.
Yeah, you start the game, you're like, all my points into energy weapons because that's going to be obviously really useful and very cool. Mm-hmm. And then you realize
you need some intelligence.
It was a very poor decision.
Yeah.
That's the key, is put it all in intelligence. Put all of your points into intelligence. It's a painful first 5 hours, but the game is so much more awesome after that because you level up so fast.
There are some things too, because I think there's like agility and stuff like that. So you don't want to be the super like book smart guy who like falls off of a sidewalk and breaks his ankle.
Did you ever play with 0 intelligence or like 1?
No.
All the dialogue changes, or a lot of it. They like
Just
literally
dumb it down
wrote
for
a
you?
whole nother set of, almost a whole nother set of dialogue.
Does the dialogue
For
seem
if you have
super
1
smart
intelligence. When
you?
people talk to you,
Mm-hmm.
like you can't hear what they're saying. Sometimes it'll put in parentheses because you're like losing focus, and then all of your responses are like really not
Low IQ.
yeah,
level
like you
responses.
are a caveman.
Yeah.
It's like your responses, especially when it's anything with science or anything, or any of the skill responses. It's literally like, yeah, it's really as if a caveman were talking. A whole nother set of dialogue. It's hilarious.
That's awesome.
It's
I
extremely
did not
funny.
know that.
It's extremely funny. Yeah. Anyway, Fallout and yeah, go ahead.
So we'll just start with Fallout as the apocalypse choice. So atomic warfare,
Segue.
which is,
Yep.
yeah, good segue. Loops us back around. Atomic warfare would mean you've got nuclear blasts, you've got nuclear fallout, hence the name of Fallout.
Yeah, there you go.
And so ultimately, that's a tough one too because Russia and the United States have enough atomic.
Okay, so topic
power.
1: how likely and how would it happen?
So, very unlikely
Yeah,
that
I agree.
Russia and the United States decide to blow each other up. If that scenario happened, you and I would be screwed. We don't have fallout shelters. You would have to have a fallout shelter in that.
Right.
Because the atomic blast fallout, the chemicals and the radiation that hangs out in the atmosphere after a nuclear blast is highly toxic. And if you look at like Hiroshima, people developed cancer and stuff like that after the bombs, similar to kind of like the terrorist 9/11 attack, where people developed cancers after the towers were hit. So you have a firefighter who went to the scene of the crime, didn't have proper PPE, personal protective equipment to keep him from inhaling all these toxins and dust, and even just dust, just too much dust and smoke and stuff in your lungs. And, all these first responders get cancer from all these toxins that they were around from the aftermath of 9/11. So they don't die that day, but they die, a much shorter life than they would have had. So you would have ultimately in a nuclear warfare, you would have your food supplies would be completely decimated. And the thing that sucks about that one too is, as a prepper, you want to be able to be self-sustaining, so not just have your canned goods, but have your garden,
Right.
That keeps you going. So your garden's screwed over.
Well, you got nuclear winds, because the wind will catch nuclear fallout and carry it around to different
Yeah.
areas. They've seen that
So
from
we're in Central Oregon,
from tests and stuff.
and we're also in a high elevation, which helps. So if they hit, say, just big metropolitan areas, so they hit like Seattle, Portland, Tacoma area, hit San Francisco, LA, San Diego, those are the big ones and then Sacramento, those are the big ones on the West Coast. Say they hit those, you're gonna have a good amount of fallout just from Portland that would be coming down that way.
I read somewhere, this was like 5 years ago, I think, so this might be outdated. Although I don't know, maybe not. It was like a hypothetical, seemed fairly valid. The source seemed pretty valid. A hypothetical top 10, either EMP or nuclear, target, like top 10 in the U.S. And in one of them was Huaching in Albany, which is 3 hours west of us right now.
Right.
Because they are one of the main subcontractors for the Air Force, like plane parts and stuff.
And that's where their corporate headquarters is based?
That's where the manufacturing center is. And everything.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it
I don't know if
owned
that's
by
true.
a
It's gotta
foreign
be.
entity being named Huaching?
I don't
Not
know.
to be racist at all.
It kind of sounds like it, though. Yeah, I don't know. I have no
We'll assume
idea.
that it was
There's a lot of local employees. I mean,
Yin Yang Huaching, who moved over here as a little immigrant boy.
Yin Yang? That's a little racist.
Yin Yang.
That's not even a name, I don't think, in China.
Sorry, Yo-Yo
Go
Huaching.
Yin. Go Yin. Or Li.
Yo-Yo Huaching came over here.
That's pretty bad.
And,
that's pretty bad. I'm really sorry if you're
worked hard.
Chinese and you're listening right now. I apologize. I'm bad.
I don't apologize. You're smarter than us, so screw you.
Okay, interesting. Can I tangent off of this? If there was we're staying with category into the world's one here. From what I've read, interestingly, the only countries that have an advanced enough missile defense system to be able to shoot things down, which doesn't guarantee there's not going to be fallout, but it means that it's very unlikely that that system will fail to the point where you have a direct impact. The only countries who actually have like a beefy enough missile defense system is America,
Of course.
Russia. Israel, because we've given it to them. And then...
lots of coupons.
China is up in the air with this one. There's a lot of debate about their missile defense system. So hypothetically, let's throw China out of the picture. The worst case scenario happens and everybody's shooting everybody with nuclear missiles and everything. The only countries that would potentially be left standing would probably be Russia and America. Israel's so small and crowded by other countries that it probably wouldn't be great. No, but potentially Israel, America, Russia, and those are like the three hubs of civilization. Everything else is just complete desert.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we rely on China for our imports so much that it would definitely change the American life, even if we could even get imports coming back into the United States. I mean, eventually it would happen. If you look at, are you a Walking Dead fan at all?
I like Walking Dead. It's kind of cool.
So you've got in Walking Dead what's cool to see in some of the later season I want to say like season 6 and 7.
I haven't watched. I think I've only watched like the first 4 or so.
I'm
outdated.
I'll clue you in.
Yeah.
So in season 6 and 7, you've got enough people that they start building small societies. So they start building small towns. Because once you have 20 people,
start getting traction again eventually. Yeah.
Diversify the roles and start to go. You're the sort of kitchen lady. You're a food handler.
And I'm the mayor.
And I'm the mayor.
No, I'm the mayor. He's the mayor.
You shot the mayor. So they come up with these civilizations, and then the next thing that's awesome to see them carry it out, because it's not just that like a vague hypothetical, but it's totally something that would happen, is you have a dominating.
Sorry. You shot the mayor.
You shot the mayor because he just said he was the mayor. I'm the mayor. No, I am. You shot the
mayor. It's gonna devolve into Thunderdome in a few areas. It's gonna be. There's just people constantly fighting to become the mayor, and then you go from 20 people to 2, pretty quick. And maybe there's just one guy left, and which brings us back to Fallout. There was some city in Fallout 3 where it's just literally named after the guy.
The one guy who lived
there.
The
one guy. No, there are other. I think it was just one guy who lived there.
Like, you roll into town, and, where do you go when you first roll into town? Probably, like, the goods store, and he's there.
Welcome to Robert Smithville.
Welcome to Robert's hardware store. How can I help you? And you're like, hey, is there anywhere? I'm going to get some hardware, but then my wife wants to get some groceries. Yeah, going down to Robert's grocery store. And then as soon as you leave, you see him running across the street into the back of Robert's grocery store. And he's like, welcome to Robert's grocery store. How can I help you?
Welcome to Robert's grocery store.
And you're like, oh, hey, Robert.
Where's the gas station?
And then he's like
right
over here. You see him booking it over there. Welcome to Robert's gas station. And then you're like, I was thinking,
where's the bookstore, Robert?
I was going to get a haircut. Me and my son were going to get haircuts while the women went down to the bookstores, and Robert's just like, fuck. He's like, temporarily, the barbershop has been moved to the bookstore. Let's go, guys.
Area, I mean, thinking about like a developed post-apocalyptic society is most interesting when thinking about the very strange psychological coping mechanisms people would enter into with less population, less resources, and a whole lot of time on their hands. Thus, Robert Smith, or whatever.
Thus, Robert running around, and thus Wilson from Castaway
being that's
your
true.
Best friend.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I learned recently is that people who are kept in isolation, you think of them as talking to themselves all the time. I guess there was a study that was done, I've never heard this before, and I haven't looked into it, but I trust it from the source, is that when you talk to yourself out loud, your brain then starts to come up with responses itself. So you end up then having, because normally when you think about something, you're quickly working through it's an actual discussion, but the synapses are firing so you're going, should I move that? No, I shouldn't move that because I could do that first. Okay, I need to do that. Oh, but I got to do this. Okay, so we'll do that first, then we'll do that. So that when you're just by yourself, that dialogue turns into verbally. And so you're like, should we move that board today?
Yeah.
No, we shouldn't move that board. And you actually the brain takes on like 2 slow parts of a mechanism talking to itself. It's your turn. Now it's your turn.
Which I imagine is either a sign of advanced lunacy, or perhaps it is a great preventative measure.
I think it's the first foothold in a preventative measure to try to keep you from going insane. You have someone to talk to, and your brain is trying to trick itself and be like, There's two of us here.
I remember reading a study specifically about talking to yourself, and it found that people with a higher IQ tended to talk to themselves. That's what the study found, which is really interesting.
I only whisper to myself, so I'm sort of smart, but not a genius.
Yeah, got it. I'm sure that's not the only indicator, but it's interesting nonetheless. Okay, nuclear. What have we got left on the nuclear? Any more talking about that you feel like doing? I like the idea of America and Russia being the only like civilizations partly standing, because then Alaska becomes a busy, trade center. Really, that land bridge there. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah,
so that Alaska becomes a trading center, and I would still
possibly
with
the Thunderdome.
To take it back to Walking Dead real quick, just to make this point, is that when you have these villages that get built up, these little towns, you also have a dominating village that starts collecting taxes from the other villages.
Right.
And they're like, so you owe us this amount of produce. And they're like the protectors and the enforcers, but they're really just the bullies. They're the military force.
You gotta play New Vegas. It's Caesar's Legion. Models himself after the Romans.
Oh, so that's what ends up happening. And that would naturally occur until you can develop a democracy.
Right. If they let you.
And so it's... Yeah, well, you create a coup. Because
that's what the Thunderdome is, the ultimate peacekeeping tool.
That's a really good point. When we
go
back,
get said, did you watch that Thunderdome?
I've seen Thunderdome.
Doesn't like Tina Turner say that at some point? Like, this is the only thing keeping the peace. Like, the common rabble needs something to do. There's some kind of like
could be
thing.
What we should see if we can do is use sound bites from movies. I don't know if you have to pay just for a little sound bite, but if we had Tina Turner,
it won't sue us. We're not popular,
right?
Yeah,
we just have that little clip.
We're fine. We could edit vast amounts of Tina Turner's dialogues from all of her films, and she could basically be a permanent co-host.
That would be awesome. So that's it for the Walking Dead section. Let's go back to atomic bombs.
Yeah.
You've got the fallout, so that ruins your crops for at least a couple years, and that's why you'd have to have like a canned food storage of crops. And if the fallout was super bad, you'd have to have actual hazmat suits, live in basically a fallout shelter that has an air filtration system that's sucking in air and purifying it, keeping everything out that's harmful and unhealthy before you breathe it. So you'd have to live in like a legit, when you think of a fallout shelter, you'd have to live in one of those with an extreme apocalypse.
So there's like 50 people that would still be alive at that point. I mean, able to sustain it. I don't know.
It depends on how much warning time people had, because I know that elites, like one of the conspiracy theories is that all elites have like fallout shelters, extreme ones.
Underneath Denver Airport.
Underneath Denver Airport is one of them. Probably, that's a good location. That's high altitude.
There's a lot of weird stuff at Denver Airport. It's, I'd consider it plausible, perhaps.
Have you ever been to Denver Airport?
I have, yeah.
I haven't. I don't think it exists. So... We've covered basically gently, but I think covered enough to move on to another topic.
Yeah, nuclear. Yeah, it's very possible.
Nuclear stuff.
Stereotypical. There you go.
Nuclear is very low likely to plausibility.
It is.
Very low survival rate.
Yeah.
So it puts it at like maybe a 5 awareness level.
Yeah. I have a friend who's like an expert in this, who worked at the White House, who hopefully we'll have on the show at some
someday. We could even do.
And she said, basically, nuclear, like all-out crazy war, is pretty low on the totem pole in the scheme of other things.
If we wanted to...
In the 70s, it was a big deal, but not now.
If we wanted to, we could get a good list of questions and dialogue down for just a nuclear war podcast episode. And
a whole nother podcast just on nuclear war?
No, episode.
That is going to be
a whole episode.
Okay.
Just on nuclear war. Have her as a guest. Have all of our questions lined up.
That'd be fun.
And specifically ask her, from point A to point B, how would you survive it?
She told me what she thought. My friend worked in this on the Security Council for the White House for many years. She said much more. I can tell you the other things that she thought of. That were
Let's much more jump into
their whole other things
with you. Speaking for her, an EMP. So an EMP is an electromagnetic pulse.
I asked her if that was real.
Created, but it is real because you have it from solar flares, which the sun.
But I asked
will
if it was
send
like a
out
real actual
a
like
threat level.
difficult to prevent, like actually like a high level risk, like compared to nuclear stuff or whatever. Like, is it real? Like, because as far as I know, it's hard to know how much is conjecture when you're, researching it on YouTube. Like, who the heck knows? But no, she was like, no,
YouTube
that's
is
a real
the
thing.
most credible source for information.
Easily.
You find only
Yeah.
the most vetted sources on YouTube.
That's it, man.
They're very good about weeding out any conspiracy theories or false facts.
They are. They're actually getting better at that, which is kind of terrifying.
I wish that they would ease off of it. I wish they would just stick to like keeping things that are actually inappropriate to see, like
I agree.
death and the whole dark web side of things. But if you've got some Joe Blow ranting and raving about how the Jews caused everything, just leave it up there. Like, I think people
the problem is it sets a precedent, because you set like a legal precedent and like our terms of service. So when Twitter and YouTube are kind of like, oh, that upsets our terms of service, it is true they're taking down like, largely bad pieces of information. But the precedent it sets is they get to control what information is there, which it nudges up against the dystopian fiction that I grew up reading.
Well, yes, totally.
You know what I mean?
1984.
Getting
all
kind of
that.
1984, yeah.
And we should do an episode on 1984. We should rewatch it.
Also, Brazil, Fahrenheit 451. There's a lot of
do a couple
gold,
of them. Maybe a mashup of
just big dystopian stuff.
Dystopian Big Brother government mashup of a couple of movies.
Yeah, like what we're talking about is like maybe potentially what leads to such a society.
The first like seedling inklings.
Oh, add idiocracy onto the invisible whiteboard right now. Jeffrey, can you put thank you, idiocracy on the whiteboard? Thank you. Yeah.
I don't think they are doing it.
Are we done with nuclear?
Yeah, let's go into EMP.
Let's be done with nuclear.
I already moved into EMP.
EMP, right? EMP, yeah. So, actually, a possible real thing for it to be weaponized in a way that's difficult to. The only thing is, you can't just like this massive EMP that you can just light off like an umbrella over an entire nation is a total myth. They are not that big.
So
you'd have to deploy.
China has some capabilities for being able to do that. The nice thing about our electrical grid, I was talking with an electrical engineer that works on basically everything for the West Coast, and he's like, we've run some tests, and basically, if the West Coast got hit, because nothing crosses over the Rockies. You don't have power lines going over the Rockies. You have another company on the other side of the Rockies that does that, and then you have the Mississippi River, and you've got all these divisions. Yeah,
got it.
Different companies. There's some conglomerates, but they're not all attached together.
What if you live like on the Rockies, like you get to choose, kind of like having multiple ISPs? You know what I'm saying?
If you live on the Rockies, in the national forest,
there's somebody.
Have no electricity. And then, like you were saying too, I think, or your mom was telling me that the electrical engineer was telling me that they have these little power station. They have like basically little small tiny homes that are along the electrical grid in random spots. So in some sort of a strange worst case scenario,
her buddy's an electrical engineer.
Invasion,
yeah, he's like, you can follow the power lines and get to those little
shacks.
Little shacks.
Good luck getting in.
Which are for the electrical, like heavy duty up in the mountains work.
Yeah,
for those guys, so
they're out there, and we're actually going to delete that from the podcast.
Yeah,
so
we probably
nobody
should.
else knows.
Yeah,
but
that's the problem. Too many people know, and it's like a big old group of people there. Hey, we listened to the podcast. This is awesome. Thanks for the tip. We're out of food already, by the way.
Who's the mayor? You shot the mayor. So EMP likelihood that China would try to do that, unlikely. Likelihood that they would succeed, more unlikely, and they would only be able to take out small portions of our electrical grid.
I was told by somebody I believe that like a systematic strike on like 5 locations would just legitimately do it. The hard thing is those 5 locations have a lot of security, so it would be a real Ocean's 11 to pull off.
And they're also very far apart at the same time.
Very far apart.
So what you'd have to, like in the movies, when you've got like a picture of the globe and like aliens are attacking and like the lights shut down like all over the whole
all
entire
New York City. Manhattan's down.
Well, like the whole globe, shuts
gotcha.
down.
Gotcha,
It's like the amount of electromagnetic pulse that it would take to cause that. We've got bigger problems than not having our cell phones running at that point.
Everybody would.
That's like a full-on alien invasion.
Everybody on Earth would just have an immediate anemorrhism all simultaneously if there was an EMP.
We wouldn't have to worry. Yeah, everyone would just poop themselves to death. That's what would happen.
It's really bad. Let's talk about what life would be like after said.
Oh, EMP.
EMP.
So that would be interesting because if you had a real actual, say we go extreme with it, say there's a solar flare, which is more likely, the solar flare knocks out anything that's not in a Faraday box. And a Faraday box is basically a metal box that is grounded. So any electrical current that hits that box is grounded to the earth.
Yeah.
And so it is basically,
I have a Faraday room.
What do you call it when you're playing tag and you just randomly, a kid's tired and they're fat, so they just say like home base. So you got a little home base for your electronics. So anything not in a Faraday box is going to be destroyed, is how it works. It overloads its circuits. And
a lot of radio broadcasting stations will have the broadcasting room where all the transmitters and all that is, and have the room be a Faraday cage, so that there's no interference with any of that equipment. It's perfectly, and then it's wired out.
Here in Bend, the radio station that I worked in is not. It's behind a glass locked panel. They just have one wall that's isolated for all of that equipment, and it's behind a glass cabinet.
But you can literally just put chicken wire behind the drywall, like line it, and then ground it. At the bottom.
They might have it done on 5 sides, and only the 6th side is glass, and on the even around the edge, the perimeter of the glass casing could be metal that's also grounded.
On this note, it's really strange category of do-it-yourself stuff that you should probably be proxied before you Google, is making your own EMP, which is a terrible idea, and you should not do it, because if you accidentally set it off in the process of making it, which is very cheap and easy, your phone is gone forever.
That's a good point.
But if you really dislike somebody, you can make a personal EMP with like a 5 to 10 foot radius using a disposable camera and a mild augmentation. That's fairly easy to do. And it needs to have a chargeable flash. That's the key element that you can augment. And you get a 5 to 10 foot radius, so you can, walk up to said person that you dislike deeply.
Flash it.
Which is a problem. You should probably, go through some forgiveness issues or something. You can go up to them and be like, hey, how's it going, man? Give them a hug. Click your disposable flash. Make sure your phone is not in your pocket and their phone is not
in their pocket, whichever you human has in their pocket.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. You can make a whole crowd really miserable. But like I said, not a ton of applications there that don't end in trouble. So, but totally possible to do.
So anyway, we'll post the instructions on our website for that.
It's in the show notes. So you guys just kidding.
Ultimately, so if you had an EMP like in the movies, how it takes out the entire electrical grid globally, it would be really tough for electricians to, like linemen, to get back towards rebuilding the grid, because their phones don't work and 99% of their vehicles don't work, because an EMP also takes out your car. Even though your car's DC, it's still gonna.
There was a TV show about this. Did you watch the TV show about this? It was literally this premise. It's called Revolution, and it was fairly bad. I mean,
should be easy to find, because there's only a couple things named Revolution.
Exactly.
Out on the internet.
Super good name scheme there. Really well thought out. I think it's called Revolution. Pretty sure. Anyway, it's on this premise, and it's a fairly not very well funded TV show, but it was interesting anyway.
There's all these... Did you ever see Jericho?
Yeah, I watched Jericho. Kind of the same. It was mildly better than Revolution.
Oh, okay.
In terms of budget, but still not the greatest thing in the world. But
Jericho was interesting because while I was watching it, I was like dragging my feet through the miserableness of the drama that they have written into it.
Right.
And the lack of epicness. But then when it was over, I was like, oh, it's over.
Right.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
I did like it.
You secretly loved it the whole time subconsciously.
Firefly. Full-on Firefly going on, because you watch Firefly and you're like,
this sucks.
And then it's over, and you're like, I
want
liked it. Why did I like that?
It's like ice cream. That's how it works.
And then
it's like a weird flavor of ice cream. You're like, this is
too
weird.
Good. It's too good.
Yeah.
They spent too much money on Serenity.
Yeah, this is how I feel about strange flavors of ice cream, because you're like, oh, this is a weird one. I shouldn't have got it. And you eat it all.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
But you don't even like ice cream.
I'm not a big fan. But this is how I feel about every flavor of ice cream except for mint.
We should...
I can eat a lot of mint.
You're a weird man, Tyler. We should put a list together of things that both you and I are feel the exact same way about, and then you and I feel opposite about.
And we can bicker about it.
Because I would, if they're like, you can only for the rest of your life choose to have sugar in one thing, what would it be? And I would go ice cream. Just ice cream. Everything else would be.
That is really silly.
No, it's great, because you can also make milkshakes out of ice cream.
That's okay. Well,
between ice cream
there
and
are
milkshakes.
other things that are flexible though with recipe. Okay, really quick though, Jericho, watched it with my wife, who is awesome, beautiful, and wise, and she, I think the first or second episode, there's a scene. Just like the pragmatic, like logistics of living in that situation, and the thought that went into it by the writers was not necessarily all that awesome. There's lots of little situations. The best, most glaring one is like they rounded up a posse to like go get some supplies for somewhere, or they needed to go do something, and so they had like 4 people get some vehicles working, and like let's go out. You know, we've only got so much fuel, so let's go out. And they all are driving like Escalades and large SUVs and trucks.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
It's not the way to go when you only have 50 gallons of fuel in your city. You know what I mean?
The reason why.
But they weren't hauling anything or like doing anything.
It's the power of going through things.
Oh, right.
So it comes down
there might be some barricades up there, you know.
Mad Max.
Yeah.
You got 2 options.
Which he drives like a sports car.
Do you hop on a motorcycle, or do you take the 18-wheeler?
No, you take a Geo Metro. Because that's a perfect
Won't
world
catch
of
me
both.
in the apocalypse. Dead driving around in a Geo Metro.
No,
Toyota Tacoma, 1987.
Yeah, good.
Second biggest regret of my life. Selling that thing. Did you ever see it?
It still would be running.
Oh yeah, it'd be running.
Yeah, they'd run forever.
Yeah. I bought one. I think it was it was either right before you guys moved here or right after you guys moved.
It's ironic that like America's the home of the truck. And yet Japan makes the trucks that last.
Japan does everything that lasts. They were so ashamed of how they treated people during World War II that they were like, and same with Italy and Germany. All 3 of those companies that were allied together, they all went, ooh, me just working on stuff over here for you.
That is really racist. And also, I feel like that they felt bad until they thought about how we dropped a nuclear bomb on them.
So I mentioned, I think it was either last night while we were recording or not, that, you know, we dropped a bomb on Hiroshima, blah, blah. And my thought process last night was that it was not deserved. Then I listened to a podcast today about their camps. Their camps were,
really
you think
bad,
that
yeah.
Auschwitz was bad?
Yeah, right,
the Japanese camps were way worse. Like, I don't understand how you can, like, we think of the Nazis as being, like, very inhuman. Like, how could you do that to another human? The Japanese, like, turned it to 11. Like, they were
You know what I was wondering? I believe you, and
bad.
I've read similar things. And we have my brother on for World War II history stuff, because he'd be a great person to field these questions to. But did we have war camps? And that's the kind of stuff
we did.
Winning side writes the history books, you know what I mean? Like how so you're probably not going to find out too much about that.
We had war camps. We had Germans here. The Germans would get along with the farmers, and then the farmers and the Germans would get drunk together, and then they'd marry the farmers' wives or daughters.
Isn't that
true stories?
That's okay. That seems really familiar, like possibly from movie, perhaps.
They probably made a movie of it.
Yeah.
I'm
thinking Oklahoma and the Sound of Music or some mixed
internment camps were what the Nazis told the Jews the internment camps were, where they were like basically a big old campground.
Like KOA.
A KOA.
Come check our KOA.
Check out our KOA. Yeah. Have you ever seen those advertisements for the like Auschwitz and stuff? They had posters and they were like...
Oh, are you serious? Like actual propaganda?
Like 1950s, like a lady with a little bonnet and a picnic and like, bring your family down to Auschwitz.
Oh, my Lord.
You know,
it's
a great little place.
It's a great little place.
So we've covered EMPs, I think, pretty well. Basically, just the final statement on that it would be insanely difficult for our grid to get back up and running, and you'd end up in a Jericho situation for quite a while.
Driving SUVs around, you know what I mean?
Driving SUVs around so you can bump through. Do we go, let's hit virus, and then let's hit zombie.
Oh, virus,
and we'll
that's
hit virus
not
as a
relevant
zombie.
at all.
No, that's not. We haven't seen a virus.
We also got to go AI robot route as well.
AI robot. That'll be the cherry on top.
Yeah,
we'll hit that because that is
the
the most likely. Yeah. Dun dun dun. So we've got a virus.
Surrey camps.
We see that virus. I'm sorry. You must stay here.
Every wall has Surrey. Everything. It's a smart home from hell. Which is probably how the whole thing would start. All the smart devices.
Sorry, you're not allowed.
Okay, we're going into this
residence.
Right now because my brain it's happening. The smart homes.
AI.
It's smart homes. It continue to develop and it becomes the average home. Is the fully everything, every appliance, every wall, every doorbell, every doorknob is somehow connected to the smart device. And then one day, everybody wakes up, and it's a smart home coup, and Siri and Google have Yeah, they've teamed together.
Yeah.
And it's not good.
Difficulty level to get out of your house on a scale from 1 to 10, pretty much like a 1, because you can break a window. And number two, you can unplug your router.
I mean, that is
100%.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. You are underestimating one key component here.
What's that?
The Roombas.
And I specifically told my wife, we're not getting a Roomba. What do the Roombas do? They've got their own Wi-Fi?
Oh, the Roombas are going to have people terrified sitting in a corner. You know what I mean? Those Roombas. That's just what I'm thinking.
Everyone is scared of their grandmother's vacuum, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Grandma. So should we get back into viruses? Or
does your grandma have a Roomba? My grandma does not have a Roomba.
Grandmas have those big, loud vacuums, and as a 2-year-old crawling around on the floor, she's like, I'm going to suck you up. And you're like, you might! You know? The big old bag that inflates as it turns on. Don't eat me! Yeah. And then you hear stuff getting sucked up.
That's why it's good Grandpa generally didn't vacuum. He'd be like, I'm going to eat you.
Yeah.
Ah!
Oops. You all right in there, buddy?
I'm liking the sound effects, Shane, here.
Boom, 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 boom.
Okay, moving on.
Viruses are happening. Everyone has one. They're going around.
You're just going to skim over the Roombas and the...
I'm skimming over the Roombas. Unless you got somewhere else to go with it.
Not really. I was just thinking Matrix, because, we got robots, I don't know, if, in a couple more decades, potentially, if there's more robotic... I'm actually a little disappointed in the fad of robots, especially because everything is a smart device at this point. In the 80s, everybody was in Robot Club, and that's where they thought it was all going. And then they just thought that was that was where things were going to go. We got computers, they're getting smarter. We got servers, we got mainframes, we got all these things. And now we got these, we can make, because it's not like you can't make a life-sized R2-D2. Connected to Siri.
You know what I mean? R2-D2 gets stuck everywhere in reality.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with the C-3PO is that mimicking what the body can do mechanically to move around its environment is seemingly, it's not impossible, but there's so many things, so many intricacies that go into it, because when the human body basically is like the most, in a lot of ways, almost the most advanced robot you can get, basically, because we run off of electricity.
Okay.
Soon as you start to take a step, you've got your equilibrium in your ears, which is balanced by water and air, like a bubble. That's how you balance where you're at. It's the water and the air, the bubble in your ear that tells you, like, you're to the right, you're to the left. And if that gets messed up, it causes...
that disease, what that's called? Vertigo. Yeah.
And you can...
And when you have vertigo, they literally have to, like, tip your head to the side and then jerk it back one way, and it's, like, literally forcing that bubble into the right spot.
Yeah,
and that's crazy, it's not a bubble, but that's the best
everyone has
analogy.
The ability to walk around a room, and your body still has the physical ability to walk around a room when you have vertigo, but because you have vertigo, because your equilibrium is off, there was a guy who had vertigo that worked for us. He started to have a cane, because when he would walk, and he's only like 40, had to have the cane as a third like thing to lean on to give his body a reference, because he would try to walk and he would start leaning to the side.
While he's slinging a skill saw around?
No. He was just a project engineer, so he was just...
Hey, Jimmy, can you get that skill saw come over here? Jimmy! Ah!
Exactly, yeah. He couldn't walk straight.
Leaning on the skill saw, sawing with the cane. Mm-hmm. That sounds really bad. You're saying robots, this is hard to reproduce in robots, which brings me to the real reality behind this, because, Roombas and smart homes are not going to do it. But Cyborg is going to do it, because pretty soon smartphones are just going to be an implant. They're just we're gonna have Oculus goggles that are like permanently attached, and then you're gonna have people living in an alternate reality. Follow me on this. An alternate reality, just like Pokemon Go or something, or one of these games where it like activates your camera function, except it's something you're permanently looking through. And so who knows what the real world actually looks like, because you're in like a virtual reality. It's like Ready Player One. What was that? Did you watch that?
Tyler Stone, everybody.
Yeah. Okay, so just imagine there's an Oculus Rift permanently soldered to your face, and you're living in like Facebook Live forever. How would you know what the real world looked like? And
you wouldn't, and that's why you don't have the mark of the beast.
Well, yeah.
There's a really interesting podcast to listen to that talks about a guy who's into bionic like modifications, and there's a ton of them that are available on the market, and you can go to like a back alley surgeon and he'll do all these different things. So he has like plates in his shins, and he has things in his ears and things in his eyes and all these different things.
Whoa.
And so he has like audio things that will allow him to hear better and farther away.
Those are called hearing aids, just FYI.
Yeah, but like built in, and he doesn't need them, so it's like an upgrade from regular.
Like, don't just give me hearing aids.
Give me like
cut my ears open and implant hearing aids in my ears so that I can never take them out
and hear better than any other human. So
well, that's what hearing aids do, though. I mean, hypothetically, like why?
Well, the reason you have hearing aids is because you don't hear well. And so it's solving a solution. He has perfectly working ears, and he gets a better version of hearing aids.
I am not an old man. Why wouldn't I go get a hearing aid right now?
Because you don't need it. Oh, the hearing aid can only
he didn't need it either.
No. The hearing aid only has the capabilities of what you can hear right now. This device increases what you can hear right now, beyond what you can hear now and what a hearing aid could do for you.
Okay.
So you can hear, I can hear the baby cry without a baby monitor in the next room, and I can hear my neighbors across the street talking. It's not that extreme, but it increases his ability to hear beyond what a normal human can.
That sounds
all
terrible.
These things. It's interesting the way the story goes because he's into this. His wife leaves him, takes the kids, files for full custody, breaks his heart. He goes to court. The judge says, "I'm fine that you're into these body modifications." The weird twist in the story is that he says, "I'm into these body modifications because I'm agnostic. I don't believe there's a God, so I don't think there's any reason to not manipulate the human body because ultimately we're all it's just a part of science." And the judge is a staunch Christian and doesn't like that, so he doesn't let him see his kids.
Oh, yeah. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, pretty harsh turn.
I don't like his reasoning at all, but I also don't like the judge's response just on a strictly legal level. That seems just like, well, I don't agree with you, and so say goodbye to your children. Yeah.
Judges are old, harsh men.
That's terrible.
Typically white, sometimes black, sometimes women. They're the harshest.
Right. Wow.
Karen's out there with the gavel.
That got really, really intense. Really
so
quickly.
Viruses.
Yeah, let's move on to viruses. That sounds great.
Viruses, as Bill Gates would say, is the most plausible cause for a human wipeout. The one that we're currently...
Bill Gates says that and then looks at the camera and winks.
And he's like, and guess who's working on the vaccine, baby? Currently, we're living through a hype.
Currently, we're developing vaccines that. Anyway.
Currently, we're living through a hyped up vaccine or a hyped up virus that isn't nearly as bad as we thought it was. Thank goodness it's not, because it would have actually killed a lot of people.
Tell me how you feel about that. Actually,
so far, well, no one in Deschutes County has died from the coronavirus, the COVID-19.
True.
So,
and let's not get caught on COVID-19.
No. But a virus that is as deadly as they thought COVID was going to be.
Like Ebola.
Wiped out Ebola.
Yeah. I was envisioning like the virus to end it all would be like Ebola that's extremely more contagious and I don't know.
No, it's not. So here's the problem. I watched a documentary on this. The Ebola is highly contagious. Yeah. That's why they wear the full hazmat suits. It's highly deadly. Yeah. And that is a detriment to the virus because
it kills people too quickly.
Yeah, they get sick, they go home, they lay in bed, they die. Only the people who have contact with them are then infected. Whereas with a coronavirus,
Putin was like, "Man, we totally screwed that one up really bad." Who is in charge of the death rate?
Exactly.
The kill rate.
A virus for its own survival can't be too deadly.
Right.
If it kills its host too quickly, it doesn't have a chance to spread through society.
So they need to engineer it needs to be common cold, and then
COVID
2 weeks
being
later,
2 weeks exactly.
You're bleeding out your eyeballs. Yeah.
You spread for 2 weeks. You're having a great time. You're shaking everyone's hand, making out with all your Tinder dates.
Yeah.
They all are making out with all their Tinder dates.
Hold on, what?
Spreading. It's spreading. Everything you touch, all the keypads, bink, bink, bink. Your 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. Pin code over and over and over again. No, it's not. I almost said my pin code. I was like, I shouldn't say that. And so,
what's your social security number? Also, while we're here. Moving on. Virus.
1976, because America.
Because Wade Bicycle's America. Just a random date, because America. Mm-hmm. Did anything of note happen in 76? I'm sure something happened. Anyway, moving on.
I think it's the bicentennial of the nation. 200 years.
Honestly, COVID-19 is going on right now. I think viruses we should just talk about zombies.
I think this is the one thing that the government hasn't done with viruses is like there's this big push to make guns illegal and have gun control. They need to do with that with viruses as well. The government is not pushing to make viruses illegal. If it was like a virus-free zone and there's no viruses, then there's no viruses allowed on campus. No one gets sick. And the government really hasn't taken action to do that at all.
My administration is going to crack down on viruses.
We have virus-free zones. No viruses are allowed. That'll keep the viruses from coming on site.
We are going to station officers in all of the virus neighborhoods. I'm sorry, my brain just went to Joe Biden. It's really bad.
And now it's gone forever. You can't once you go to Joe
Biden, you can't go.
You can't get a sentence out.
I melded with his brain melting. I had a brain meld
in the summer, spring, fall, winter, early spring, summer. Anyway, we visited these people,
and that is why we are campaigning for Donald Trump's re-election. I mean, my grandmother
his demise,
and put Arkansas. Hello to. All right. Vote for Trump.
It's bad.
What? Yeah. And
dang it. Against me,
so
I
bad.
believe. Oh, no.
I feel bad for him, but I can't stop laughing at him. The worst, when he said the thing, I watched it with you, it was the...
19...
No, the kids, the white kids.
Oh, yeah.
White kids White kids are just as smart as poor kids. White kids are just as smart as poor kids. It was either that or he said black kids are just as... The African Americans
are just as
smart as... No, it's just as smart as rich kids. He made the opposite, and it was really bad. Like, minorities are the opposite.
Poor kids are just as smart as white kids.
Yeah, that's what he said. I think that's what it was. I said, poor kids are just as smart as white kids. He was talking about, like, bolstering the education system or something. My administration, because, white kids are just as smart as poor kids. And then he just, like, paused, and then somebody started laughing in the audience in a very packed room. And he was speaking at the Latin American Equality PAC. Which is even...
Exactly where you want to say that.
It's even better. Because probably, I'm sorry, but if he was like at a Trump rally, there probably would have been a few people who were like, hell yeah, or something like that. But a couple people started clapping and then somebody started laughing like really ridiculously and probably snorting out their nose. And it was just really awkward. And I think he just changed the subject really hard after that.
Poor kids are just as smart as white kids. Shit.
Yeah, it was not a good moment. That's I don't suspect we're going to see any debates before this next presidential election. I think it would be... You
think zero debates?
I think zero debates because I think it'll be...
Oh, that would be so amazing.
No, I love the debates. They're awesome.
No, I love the debates.
It's entertainment.
It would be amazing to have that as a piece of our history where we vote for someone who hasn't debated against their competitor.
Yeah, we didn't.
I don't know the last
we didn't have a debate.
Happened.
We didn't have a debate because the Democratic candidate's brain was melting and knew it would be political suicide.
And we said, COVID, it's unsafe. That's insane. When was the last time you think two presidential candidates didn't have a face-to-face debate?
I don't know if that's... I don't know. I just wouldn't know. I'd be guessing.
So there's the one. I know the first JFK.
That was the first televised debate. That was a big deal.
They said that Nixon looked terrible
on camera.
JFK, yeah, but the radio listeners said that
Nixon won the debate. And all the TV listeners were like, "I'm voting for JFK now." Because
he wouldn't put makeup on.
Because he's handsome.
He looked haggard.
And JFK's a handsome guy.
Yeah, was.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sorry, JFK. He's a handsome guy. Definitely. What?
He killed himself. No, yeah.
No.
Yes. Secret Service was like, we got to put the bubble cover on the car, and he was like, I want the people to see me, and then boom.
What are you talking about?
I'm saying he was in an open vehicle that's supposed to have a cover on it.
Oh, right.
And Secret Service said, we need to put the cover on it, and he said no. And
right.
Then, that's basically
I don't think that is a suicide. I'm pretty sure, like, by definition, that is absolutely not. I think that's
in this day
not
and age,
taking a precaution, but
lick a subway station pole, that's suicide. You're taking an unhealthy risk. Zombies.
Okay, yeah, let's move on. That's a good idea. Let's go to zombies.
So say there's a virus, and there are brain-eating viruses that affect animals. Like a lot of insects get affected by a virus, and then the insect does the will of what the virus wants.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely crazy. There's viruses, and there's also a fungus, basically a mushroom, it gets into...
So we're going to have like this is an actual logistical
scientific possibility of it actually happening. The actual possibility of it happening is super low, but biologically, is it possible? Not plausible.
Possible.
Is it possible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
It's absolutely scientifically possible.
Tell me why.
Because there's a fungus that infects different insects in the rainforest, and it gets into the brainstem.
I went to the specialty shop yesterday and I ate this like mushroom burger and I feel really weird. And you look really good. I don't know where I'm going with that, but
I'm hungry.
Yeah,
the fungus makes me want to eat you.
So I'm never going to eat any South American fungus, anything. Just I don't know where that'd be for sale.
Or bugs. It's not in the States.
Bugs.
You gotta go to...
Okay, please continue. There's a fungus.
There's a fungus and it basically kills the insect, and then it uses the insect's nutrients to grow out of. And then it sends spores in the air and kills the fungus. And they're all hive animals, or typically they're hive animals. So it's like the bee should be going back to its nest where it would die. There's no light in the nest. So the fungus tricks the brain into going, you just want to rest on this sunny leaf for a little bit. And then the fungus kills the insect. The insect falls to the ground outside where it's going to get...
So it actually has like a psychosis type, a neurological effect. Yeah. Wow.
So if there was, could be a fungus, could be a virus...
mental control or something.
Yeah, they're both biological,
wild.
So it doesn't matter. You think of
have they done any tests like if like people like they feed it to other like a rat or something like a lab rat? Like what does the rat do? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't know how it gets.
Putin's got that figured out.
Right, he's working on it.
Yeah.
I don't know how it. I know that it goes. The spores go into the air and it lands on. I don't think that the animal has to ingest it. I think it lands on the back of the neck of the insect. And then it goes through...
Just the spores, that's all it needs.
The spores land on the back of the neck, and they do their thing to go inside the brain of the insect. So if there could be a fungus or a virus or some other parasite, is a good one.
But why does the fungus do this, by the way? Why would a fungus have like a defense mechanism that's so incredibly violent towards
I think
little honeybees?
All it wants to do is when those spores start to grow, it wants to have a mound of nutrients to grow out of. So if you take the insect, you have an entire, like the amount of nutrients in an insect compared to what a fungus needs is an incredibly rich source of nutrients. The insect's body. So if it can capture that whole body for its, basically the spores are like the eggs, if they can capture that and infiltrate that and use that as their garden bed, basically, that's how it works.
Wow.
So if there is a virus or a fungus or a parasite that humans were susceptible to, that caused humans to basically have almost like somewhat of a rabies effect, because that's a thing that already happens where you become rabid, and the term is you're highly aggressive beyond reason, and you've got adrenaline pumping through your body, and that's just a disease that you get that has that mental effect on you. And it's the same in you would think that humans, because we don't see humans with rabies, obviously, but it's the same as Old Yeller, where you lose your personality, you become completely rabid, and there is an antidote for it, but typically if you get rabies, you end up dying pretty quickly from it.
Wow.
But it's just as legit as from Old Yeller, where
so you're feeling like this is something that like you could actually engineer potentially and weaponize or something like that, or it's just something that could naturally organically like morph into something horrendous.